I still remember the sound of her voice, calm, cold, and final. My granddaughter has brought shame to this family. Those words didn't just break me, they branded me. I was standing in our grand dining hall, the same place where we celebrated birthdays, anniversaries, and so-called family unity. But that night, every eye at the table turned away. My grandmother, Eleanor Grant, the woman who raised me to believe that respect is everything, refused to even look at me. No one defended me. Not my mother, not my father, not even my brother, Daniel, her favorite. They all sat there, letting my humiliation hang in the air like smoke after a fire. And the cruelest part? I hadn't even done what they accused me of. I wanted to scream, to beg them to believe me, but I didn't. I just stood there, silent, as if my voice didn't belong to me anymore. That night, I walked out of that house, the house that once felt like home, and I swore one thing to myself. If I was going to be their disgrace, I'd make sure the truth disgraced them first. People say family is where you feel safest. For me, it was where I learned how to hide pain behind a smile. The Grants were known in our town, respected, proper, always dressed like perfection itself. My grandmother, Eleanor Grant, built that image brick by brick. Every Sunday, we'd gather at her mansion, polished silverware, fresh roses on the table, and silence unless she spoke first. Family is reputation, she used to say, lifting her teacup like it was part of a ceremony. Without it, we're nothing. I used to nod, pretending I believed her. But deep down, I was terrified of disappointing her, the way everyone was. Daniel, my older brother, never had to try. He could say the wrong thing, break the rules, even embarrass the family, yet Eleanor would smile and call him spirited. When I achieved something, my degree, my job, my independence, she'd simply say, "That's expected, dear." At dinners, she'd ask Daniel about his work, his plans, his future. Me? I was the background noise, the polite, invisible granddaughter who always smiled at the right time. My mother, Lydia, floated somewhere between silence and guilt. She'd glance at me sometimes, eyes full of apology, but never spoke up. My father, Henry, stayed buried in his phone or the evening paper, quiet as a ghost. And then there was Chloe, my cousin. Always laughing, always watching. "You try too hard, Amelia," she'd whisper. "Eleanor only respects control, not emotion." But how could I be calm when everything I did was measured against Daniel's shadow? Still, I tried. I cooked the traditional meals. I attended every family function. I sent Eleanor flowers on her birthday, always white lilies, her favorite. I thought maybe, someday, she'd see me. One evening, during a family reunion, Eleanor stood to toast Daniel's promotion. Everyone clapped, glasses chiming. Then she looked at me, or rather, through me. "And Amelia," she added, almost as an afterthought, "I hope you'll find your path soon. Not everyone is meant for greatness, dear." The laughter that followed wasn't loud, but it was enough. I felt my cheeks burn, my throat tighten. I forced a smile, pretending it didn't hurt. But that night, I cried in the empty guest room, the sound muffled against a pillow that smelled of a perfume. I kept telling myself she didn't mean it, that it was love, just hidden under pride. But love shouldn't feel like this, like a test you can never pass. And then, something changed. Nora, the old housemaid who had been with our family for decades, stopped me in the hallway one afternoon. Her eyes were trembling. "Miss Amelia," she whispered, "don't let their words break you. You're not the one who should be ashamed." Her words froze me. "What do you mean?" I asked. She only looked toward Eleanor's closed study door and said softly, "There are things you don't know. Things even Daniel wouldn't dare to repeat." That was the first time I realized the shame my grandmother saw in me might actually be her own. It started with whispers, soft enough to ignore, sharp enough to wound. At first, it was Chloe's voice I heard at the garden party, dripping with fake concern. "I just hope Amelia knows what she's doing, living alone like that. People might misunderstand." I brushed it off, pretending not to care. But by the next weekend, the rumor had grown legs. They said I was living with a man before marriage, an unthinkable scandal in my grandmother's world. Eleanor called me to the mansion under the pretense of a family talk. The air felt heavy even before I walked in. Daniel was there too, leaning back in his chair, a smug half-smile curling at his lips. "Is it true?" Eleanor asked, her tone like ice. Is what true? I asked, though I already knew. That you brought shame to this family, living sinfully, without respect for your upbringing. The words stung. Grandma, I'm just renting an apartment with a friend from work. A man, she interrupted. My mother flinched. My father looked away. Daniel folded his arms. It's all over town, Amelia. You've embarrassed us. Again. That word, again, sliced deeper than any insult. I had spent my life trying to prove I was worthy of their respect, and still, they found a new reason to humiliate me. I felt my pulse rising. Why do you believe everyone except me? You always do this, Grandma. You choose Daniel, no matter what he does. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Your brother doesn't defy family values. He honors them. By lying? By cheating on his wife behind closed doors. The words burst out before I could stop them. The room went silent. Daniel's face turned red. You better watch your mouth, he hissed. You've got no idea what you're talking about. But I did. I'd seen the messages, the hidden calls, the excuses. And I'd kept quiet, out of loyalty, out of fear. Eleanor stood up, trembling with fury. Enough. I will not have you poisoning this family with your jealousy and your filth. Her words echoed through the room, sharp as glass. My mother tried to speak, but Eleanor raised her hand to silence her. I won't tolerate disrespect, she said coldly. Until you remember who you are no longer welcome in this house. I looked around, waiting for someone, anyone, to stop her. But Daniel's smirk told me he was enjoying every second. My father's silence told me the verdict was final. I picked up my bag and turned toward the door, holding back tears. One day, I said quietly, you'll regret choosing lies over love. Eleanor didn't answer. Only her voice followed me as I left. You've dragged our name through the dirt, Amelia. Don't come back until you've learned respect. Outside, the night air felt colder than it ever had. I walked until my feet ached, anger burning in my chest like fire. But something inside me shifted that night, a spark of doubt, a whisper of Nora's warning echoing in my mind. You're not the one who should be ashamed. And as I looked back at that grand house glowing in the dark, I realized something was terribly wrong, not with me, but with the family I'd just been cast out of. After that night, everything changed, not just in words, but in silence. The kind that seeps into walls and lingers in the air long after you've gone. I stayed away for weeks, hoping someone would reach out. No one did. Not my mother, not Daniel, not even Eleanor, the woman who claimed to be the pillar of family unity. I was erased, like a name scratched out from a family Bible. Then came my cousin Chloe's engagement party, an event I was expected to attend, because appearances matter. My mother called me the night before. Just come, Amelia. Don't make things worse. Worse? I asked softly. For whom? Me, or the reputation? The next evening, I arrived in a simple blue dress. Everyone else shimmered in gold and pride. Conversations stopped when I entered. Smiles faded into judgment. Eleanor stood at the center of it all, like a queen among loyal subjects. Her eyes met mine briefly, cold, controlled. I see you decided to show up, she said. I'm still part of the family, aren't I? I replied. Her lips tightened. Respect is earned, dear, not claimed. The words hit harder because she said them in front of everyone, guests, relatives, even neighbors. A few people chuckled softly, pretending it was harmless banter. I smiled, pretending it didn't cut me open. Daniel made sure the humiliation didn't end there. During his speech, he raised his glass and said, Let's toast to loyalty and dignity, two things our family values more than anything else. His eyes flicked toward me. Laughter followed. Even my mother didn't stop him. I stood there, feeling my heart pound. My fingers trembled as I held my glass, but I refused to let a single tear fall. I swallowed the pain, the rage, the helplessness. Later that night, I found refuge in the empty hallway near Eleanor's study. The air smelled of her perfume, lavender and control. That's when Nora appeared again, her hands wringing nervously. You shouldn't be here, she whispered. If she finds you. I don't care anymore, I said. She took everything from me. My respect, my family, my name. Nora's eyes softened. Then maybe it's time you take something back. Before I could ask what she meant, She pressed an old brass key into my palm. This opens the chest in the attic. The one she forbade anyone to touch. My breath caught. Why are you giving this to me? Because, she said, glancing toward Eleanor's study door, you deserve to know the truth before it destroys you, like it destroyed her. Her words clung to me the rest of the night. I didn't sleep. I kept replaying every insult, every cold stare, every time I'd been silenced. It all began to make sense. Eleanor's paranoia, Daniel's blind loyalty, my mother's quiet guilt. The next morning, I stood in front of the attic door, key trembling in my hand. Dust floated in thin shafts of light as if the air itself was holding its breath. I turned the key slowly, heart pounding. Inside, old boxes lined the room, each labeled neatly in Eleanor's handwriting. But one, a small wooden chest, was marked only with a single word, private. For a moment, I hesitated. Opening it would mean crossing a line I could never uncross. Then I remembered her words at the dinner. You've dragged our name through the dirt. I tightened my grip on the key, my voice barely a whisper. No, Grandma, you did. And with that, I lifted the lid, not realizing that what waited inside would destroy everything I thought I knew about my family. The chest smelled like time itself, old paper, faded perfume, dust, and secrets. My hand shook as I opened it, not knowing that what waited inside would burn away the last bit of love I had left for that family. Inside were letters, dozens of them, tied with a faded red ribbon, each one written in Eleanor's perfect cursive, delicate, disciplined, and poisonous. At first, I thought they were love letters between her and my late grandfather. But the name on the first envelope wasn't his. It was Thomas Reed. I froze. Thomas Reed wasn't my grandfather. He was someone else entirely, a name I'd never heard mentioned in all my life. My chest tightened as I unfolded the first letter. My dearest Thomas, I cannot live with the guilt any longer. The child will carry your eyes, your smile. But for the world's sake, and mine, I must tell them she is Henry's. I read those words again and again, my hands trembling. The child. My mother. Another letter followed. If anyone ever learns the truth, our name will crumble. I've done what I must to protect the Grants. Forgive me. I sank to the floor. My head felt heavy. My pulse roared in my ears. The woman who destroyed me for auditioning the Bloodline had built her entire life on a lie. The Bloodline itself was a lie. Nora's words echoed, "You're not the one who should be ashamed." Tears blurred my vision as I stared at Eleanor's perfect signature, her pride carved into paper. And beneath the letters, I found something else, a legal document. My name had been crossed out in pen. Across the top, stamped clearly, Amendment to Grant Family Trust. I was officially disinherited. The note attached was short, handwritten by Eleanor herself. Amelia Grant is no longer eligible as a beneficiary due to moral misconduct. Her share shall be transferred to Daniel Grant. My breath caught. She had done it. She had erased me completely, not just from her heart, but from the family legacy. The house, the inheritance, everything my parents promised would be ours one day, all gone. That night, I sat in my apartment staring at those papers. The city lights outside flickered like the world was mocking me. I thought of calling my mother. I didn't. I thought of Daniel, of how easily he'd smirk and say I brought it on myself. I thought of Eleanor, probably sleeping soundly, believing her lie was safe. The pain twisted into something else, something dark, steady, alive. The next morning, I went back to the mansion. Nora met me at the door, her face pale. "She knows you found it," she whispered. "She's furious." "Good," I said. Eleanor was in the parlor, sipping her tea, pretending the world was still under her control. I placed the letters and the trust paper on the table in front of her. "You lied to everyone," I said quietly. "You made my mother live a lie. You humiliated me to protect yourself." Her eyes flickered but her tone stayed composed. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, I know enough. You had an affair. My mother isn't a Grant by blood. You covered it up to save your name." Her hand trembled, but she set the cup down carefully. "You will destroy this family if you speak another word." I laughed bitterly. "Destroy it? You already did. I'm just the one cleaning up the mess." "Amelia," she said sharply, "you are a child who doesn't understand sacrifice. I gave up everything to protect this family. And I'll do it again." I stepped closer. "You didn't protect us. You protected yourself. She stood, eyes burning. If you think you can blackmail me. Blackmail.
I cut in. No, Grandma. I don't want your money.
I want the truth.
Her expression hardened.
Then you'll get nothing from me.
Not my name.
Not my forgiveness. For a moment, I saw it, the fear behind her arrogance, the desperation to hold on to her perfect lie. I gathered the papers and turned to leave. I won't tell anyone, I said softly.
Not yet. Coward, she spat.
You think you can shame me with old secrets? You're nothing. You'll always be nothing. Her voice cracked on that last word, and something in me finally broke.
I didn't cry. I didn't yell.
I just looked at her, really looked, and felt something die inside me. The woman who raised me wasn't family. She was a stranger wearing pride as armor. I walked out of that house, the letters clutched in my hand. Outside, the air was sharp and cold, but for the first time, I wasn't afraid of it. I was done begging for respect. If Eleanor wanted silence, she'd have it for now, but not peace. Not forever.
Because I had something stronger than her lies.
I had the truth. And one day soon, the world would hear it. That was the night I stopped being her granddaughter, and became her reckoning.
After the papers, something inside me hardened.
Grief had been my teacher, betrayal my fuel. For days I let the anger burn, then I learned to put a hand on it and shape it into something useful. I stopped reaching for pity and started making lists, careful, quiet lists that felt like blueprints for a life that no longer depended on Eleanor's approval. First, I rebuilt myself in small ways.
I slept properly. I stopped answering Daniel's taunting texts.
I worked later, took extra shifts, saved every dollar so I wouldn't have to beg for a roof or be bullied out of a place to sleep. Each small victory, a paid bill, a steady paycheck, a calm morning, chipped away at the helplessness. I found a rhythm, and in that rhythm my mind sharpened.
Then I gathered allies.
Nora was the first. Her eyes had the same tired honesty they always had. You can't fight them alone, she said, sliding a steel photograph into my hand, the proof that Eleanor's handwriting matched the letters. But you have something she doesn't, the truth in your hands. Victor, the family lawyer, surprised me. At first he refused. Loyalty to the family name is a powerful habit. But he also had a conscience I hadn't seen before. In a hushed office one afternoon he admitted, the trust was altered under false pretenses. If you want to expose it, we can make it irrefutable. His offer came with a warning, legal backlash, public shame, irreversible fractures. Are you ready for that? He asked. Ready isn't the word, I said. Determined is. We built a plan that felt cold and precise. First, verify every document, letters, the trust amendment, the old birth certificates. Victor pulled original archives, notarized copies, and a chain of custody for the chest's contents so Eleanor couldn't claim forgery. I called a lab and paid out of my savings for a discreet DNA test, not to humiliate my mother, but to prove what the letters already said. Lydia consented, trembling, and for the first time since the confrontation she looked me in the eye with something like relief. I'm tired of living in her shadow, she whispered. Do it. For me. Second, gather witnesses. Nora agreed to testify about the chest and her years of watching Eleanor hide things. A retired housekeeper, an old neighbor, even a distant cousin who remembered whispers. They were willing to speak if it meant truth finally had a voice. We recorded statements, notarized them, and prepared sworn affidavits. Third, choose the stage. I didn't want anonymity. I wanted the lie to be exposed where it had reigned, in front of the people who had cheered for Eleanor's perfection. Eleanor's 50th anniversary gala, the perfect altar for her reputation, became the calendar circled in red. We would not ambush her with slander. We would present facts, certified documents, authenticated letters, DNA results, sworn testimony. The plan was not revenge through cruelty but through clarity. Let the truth have its unbearable sound. We also prepared for retaliation. Legal counters? Certainly. A smear campaign? Probably. The family might turn their wrath to me, call me greedy, unstable, cruel. Victor taught me how to respond. Calm, factual statements. No theatrics. No begging. Just evidence and the quiet steadiness of someone who knows every step she's taken is legal and true. Even as we checked and double-checked, the fear lingered. This was risky. Exposing the lie could free me, but it could also fracture my mother into pieces or ruin relatives who had nothing to do with the original sin. Every night I wrestled with that possibility, asking myself if the truth was worth the collateral damage. On the morning of the gala, everything felt suspended. I dressed in plain black, nothing flashy, not to punish them, but to be invisible until the moment the papers were passed across the table. Victor slid the sealed envelope into my bag. Nora pressed a small key into my palm for an old box of photos, and Lydia's hand rested on mine for a heartbeat that steadied me more than any plan. Once it goes public, Victor said softly, there's no turning back. I breathed in, feeling the old fear and the new resolve braided together. My voice was steady when I finally answered. Then let it go. At the threshold of the hall, with the anniversary lights spilling like confetti around the grand chandelier, I paused, and for a heartbeat the world narrowed to the envelope in my bag and the sound of my own breath. Would I push it across the table, or fold the truth back into silence? The night of the anniversary arrived with polished glass, chandeliers, and lies wrapped in silk. Every corner of the Grant estate gleamed with luxury, a kingdom built on deception. Eleanor stood at the head of the grand hall, radiant in a pearl gown, the perfect queen of a dynasty that worshipped her.
Guests circled her like planets around the sun.
Daniel, the ever-charming heir, stood proudly beside her, his smile a weapon polished over years of favoritism. And then there was me, the ghost of the family, returned from exile. I arrived quietly, no announcement, no escort. Just the envelope in my bag and a truth that pulsed like fire beneath my skin. Nora's eyes met mine across the room. She gave a small nod. Lydia stood near the piano, hands trembling, knowing what was coming but too afraid to stop it. As the music faded and champagne glasses clinked, Eleanor tapped her spoon against the crystal flute. Tonight, she declared, we celebrate 50 years of honor, sacrifice, and family legacy.
Applause thundered.
My heart raced. Victor, standing discreetly near the side, gave me a look, the silent question. Are you ready?
I stepped forward.
I'd like to say something.
The room went still. Every head turned. Daniel's smirk froze halfway.
Eleanor's eyes sharpened like blades. Amelia, she said coolly, this is hardly the time for personal speeches.
I think it's exactly the time, I said.
50 years of honor, you said? Then let's tell the truth about what that honor cost. A nervous murmur rippled through the guests. I reached into my bag and pulled out the letters, fragile, yellowed, shaking slightly in my hand. These belong to you, Grandma. Letters to Thomas Reed, the man who wasn't your husband.
Gasps erupted. Someone dropped their glass.
Eleanor's face went pale.
How dare you?
Oh, I dare. I cut in, my voice rising. Because you called me shameful for living honestly. You made my mother live a lie to protect your name. You humiliated me to keep your own secret buried. Daniel stepped forward, his voice trembling with anger.
This is madness.
You're making things up. I turned to him and held up the legal documents. Really? Because the DNA test says otherwise.
Mother isn't a Grant by blood.
Which means your inheritance, Daniel, isn't as secure as you thought. The color drained from his face. Guests whispered, snapping photos, recording. The empire of respect Eleanor built was crumbling in real time, under her own roof. Enough. Eleanor shouted, slamming her hand on the table. You think anyone will believe a bitter girl over me? I am the Grant legacy. I stepped closer, calm now, every tremor replaced by clarity.
You were. But tonight, everyone knows the truth. The bloodline you worshipped was built on betrayal. You called me a disgrace.
But it's your lies that stained this family. Lydia suddenly sobbed, stepping into the light. She's telling the truth, Mother.
I saw the letters years ago.
You made me burn the rest.
The room fell silent.
Eleanor's mouth opened, but no sound came. For the first time in my life, I saw her fragile, not powerful, not perfect, just human. Daniel backed away, muttering curses, while reporters' flashes from invited guests caught every trembling expression.
The mighty matriarch was cornered by her own history.
Eleanor whispered, You'll regret this, Amelia. I met her gaze, steady and unafraid.
No.
I regret staying silent for so long. And then I laid the final blow, the trust amendment, notarized, projected onto the screen Victor had arranged for the presentation slideshow.
The guests gasped as they saw her signature. Her betrayal of me.
Her rewriting of the family's inheritance. Here it is, I said softly, the proof of how far you'd go to protect a lie. Eleanor's hand trembled, her voice breaking for the first time. Everything I did was for this family.
I nodded.
And now, I'm doing the same.
The crowd murmured.
The sound wasn't applause, it was something deeper, realization, shock, the collapse of an illusion. Eleanor sank back into her chair, eyes hollow.
Daniel stormed out.
My mother wept silently, both freed and broken at once. I took one last look at the woman who had ruled our lives with fear and pride. You taught me to protect our name at any cost, I whispered. Tonight, I finally did. And with that, I walked away, not as the disgraced granddaughter, but as the woman who ended the lie. Behind me, I heard the crystal shatter on the floor, and Eleanor's voice, faint but trembling. What have I done? The truth had finally spoken, and it spoke louder than her legacy ever could. The night after the gala felt eerily quiet, as if the whole world had paused to catch its breath. The storm had passed, and all that remained were the ruins of what once looked like perfection.
I walked out of the Grant mansion without looking back.
The air smelled like rain and old roses. Inside, I could still hear faint voices, gasps, whispers, the slow unraveling of everything Eleanor had built. For years, her control had been absolute. But the truth had done what no argument, no plea, ever could. It broke her crown in silence. In the days that followed, the world moved quickly. The news spread through the family, through the town. Some relatives called me brave. Others called me cruel. Daniel refused to speak to me. My mother left the house she'd once been afraid to abandon. For the first time, she stood on her own, shoulders trembling but unbowed. I never thought freedom would hurt this much, she told me, eyes wet. Sometimes, I said softly, the truth burns before it heals. Eleanor stayed inside her home, curtains drawn, her once perfect garden now overgrown. I heard she refused visitors, even Daniel. Nora said she sits for hours staring at the portrait of my grandfather, the life she pretended to have. Did I feel pity? Maybe. But mostly, I felt peace. Because I hadn't destroyed her, she had destroyed herself, one lie at a time. I had only held up the mirror. I found work in another city. Small apartment, quiet neighborhood, my own rhythm. Sometimes I caught my reflection and barely recognized the woman I had become, no longer the obedient granddaughter, no longer the family scapegoat. Just someone real. One evening, my mother called. She asked about you, she said softly. Eleanor. She wanted to know if you're happy. I hesitated. Then I smiled. Tell her I'm finally living with respect, the kind that doesn't need a family name to prove it. That night, I sat by my window and thought about everything we lost, and everything I'd gained. Truth had cost me my family's approval, but it had given me something far more precious, self-respect. For years, I believed silence was strength, obedience was love, and endurance was virtue. But now I know, silence only protects the powerful, and love built on fear isn't love at all. My grandmother once said, family is reputation. She was wrong. Family is the people who see you for who you are, and don't need a lie to love you. I whispered those words into the quiet night, letting them settle in the space where pain used to live. The Grant legacy ended that night, but something else began. Not revenge, not triumph, but truth. And truth, I've learned, is the most dangerous and the most beautiful form of freedom. Respect, I said once more to the empty room, isn't something you inherit, it's something you refuse to lose. And with that, I closed the chapter on the Grants, not with bitterness, but with peace. Because when the dust settles and the lies fade, all that remains is dignity, and the quiet strength of knowing you never needed their approval to begin with.